take forward into your own life. So does that sound okay? Yeah, good. I'm hoping to be done within a nice time frame so we can get a few Q&As in as well, and then because I find that can be a bit more valuable sometimes than the talk. So like I said, my name's Kalymnios. I'm a coach, a speaker, trainer and an author, and really it's my passion helping people find the superhuman within them. So being all they can be, being a better version of themselves, and really understanding that there is so much more potential to them than they may have previously believed. And that comes about from a number of different things, of which nutrition is just a small part. But it's quite an important part, especially for today, naturally, but it's been quite an important part of my journey because it's been so culturally embedded into my life and into the lives of many other people, how important like food and diet and everything is. And I didn't kind of realize this until I started to make changes to my own life. So as the title kind of alludes to, I was a big meat eater, and I'm sure almost most people in this room may not have grown up being vegan or vegetarian. It may be something that you've come to for whatever reason that you've come to. A lot of people come to it from an animal cruelty point of view, some people from an environmental point of view, some people from a health point of view. I didn't come to it from any of those points of view, really. I came to it from more of an energy point of view. So, yeah, just to give you some background, I mean, I was a big meat eater. So this is me at one of my barbecues, and I would be slapping on the meat. This was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And so I kind of liked my meat. I was having it twice a day, every day for God knows how many years. I couldn't even go to a restaurant and order something like a salad because I just felt like it would be a waste of money just buying salad items. So the point I'm trying to make is that I was die-hard into my meat. And I'm quite an active fellow. I like working out. I do all these kind of things. And I thought, there's no way I can survive without meat. In fact, I didn't even really eat any vegetables until I was 19 years old. And the only reason, I mean, I had some salad before. I think I started eating salad at 16. But before that, I just liked cucumber. And that was the only kind of vegetable thing that I used to eat. And it was only because I went to university when I was 19. I went to one of these catered halls, and they kind of gave me like 3 roast potatoes with the dinner. And I was used to having like 18 potatoes or something like that with my meal. So I felt I was forced to eat vegetables. And the irony of it being, of course, and my parents find it hilarious, is that now that's basically all I do eat is vegetables. So you can kind of turn things around. But the way I came to choosing and eating the way I eat now is not through an overnight change. I know a lot of people, they come to maybe an event like this, or they go to some other kind of seminar, they come out all inspired, they watch a movie, and Saturday, Sunday they're having their roast, and then Monday they've become vegan. For me, that wasn't the case. It's not even something I personally recommend any of my clients. I think that there's a lot of change that happens too quickly in that case, and maybe you're not prepared for it. But the way I came about it was very gradually. So in 2008, I was made aware by my sister, in fact, that maybe dairy might be kind of mucus forming. It might have been responsible for the sinus issues that I used to have. And it was something that was never in my awareness beforehand, that dairy can potentially cause this issue. And I had sinus problems throughout my entire life. And I'd had doctors see me. I had earaches as a kid, and nosebleeds, and my surgery, and all sorts of stuff. And I used to always have like a runny nose and blocked nose, always sound like I've got like a really bad cold. And I didn't realize it was dairy until, actually it was 2006, my sister told me. It took 2 years for me to actually accept that and try and do something about it. And so I decided for Lent to give up dairy, just to give it a go. I'm not particularly religious, but I find that Lent is quite a nice time frame that you can kind of justify it to other people. And so I gave up dairy, and I noticed significant improvements. And I thought, well, why not just stick with it? I wasn't big on cheese anyway. It was really just a case of replacing milk. And so I found that was great. And then it was only a few years later, in 2011, that I started going to different seminars and started understanding a little bit more about health as opposed to fitness. I was always into fitness, but not necessarily thinking that fitness equals health. And they're two different things. People think that if they're fit, they're healthy, because we put it together so much, fit and healthy, that we think they're the same thing, and they're not really. So you can be super fit, like the runner Jim Spix or whatever his name was, who dropped dead of a heart attack after eating, he could eat all these burgers and stuff, and he popularized running in the 1970s in America, and then dies by himself at the side of the road. So being fit does not equal being healthy. And so when I decoupled that, I started to look more into the health, and only really then did I realize the power of food, and noticing other people who were thriving on maybe a meatless diet. So I thought to myself, why don't I, for Lent, again, back in 2011, try giving up meat? And so I did. And over that period of, fully intending to go back to eating meat. So Easter Sunday, I went and I had my roast lamb with my folks. We're Greek, we like our lamb at Easter. And I just noticed I was really, really tired afterwards. And I needed to actually fell asleep for like 2 hours after I ate. And then the penny dropped for some reason, that I'd had more energy, I needed less sleep, I could actually eat more because I like to eat, and I didn't feel as stuffed, 20 minutes afterwards like I did with meat. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I just continue this for a little bit and not buy meat and just have it when I'm out and about? And what happened was, that didn't really happen that often, so a few weeks became a few months and so on. And then it was only a few years later that then I transitioned off of fish, I suppose, because I didn't even notice that. I just woke up one day and I hadn't eaten it for 6 months, and for me it just didn't call to me. So the point I'm trying to make here is that it didn't happen overnight, and it happened over a period of many years for me, and that made it a lot easier. And the other thing, which is kind of really important, and maybe I'll pose a question to you to kind of bring this point across, is hands up if anyone has made some kind of New Year's resolution and maybe not stuck to it. Anyone? It's got to be everyone, I'm sure, because we've all done that, yeah. Or maybe you've been on a diet and not stuck to that. What's the reason behind that?
Because you feel like you're depriving yourself of stuff you used to have.
Okay, yeah.
So even if you stick to the diet, once you decide to stop the diet, it's like all the things you've starved yourself, deprived yourself of, you naturally then unconsciously start to a bit of that.
Yeah.
It goes by the wayside because you're making it too hard for yourself.
Yeah, you've got this feeling you're depriving yourself of yeah, absolutely. And this kind of comes back to the point really that I'm going to make, which is that most people try and change a behavior. We try and join the gym, we give up by February. We start the new diet, 3 days in we're kind of quitting, or maybe we do the diet, but then we reward ourselves at the end with that big chocolate cake or whatever because we've done it and we've done our 6 weeks. And the point is that there hasn't been the thing that needs to change, which is fundamentally a shift in mindset. That's why my brand is called The Thought Gym, my book is called The Thought Gym, because I realized pretty early on that to get significant change, you need a shift in your mindset. And then you don't get that feeling of being deprived, because there's different things that you need to shift in your mindset. But for me, for example, when I took away meat, for example, I was thinking, well, actually, if I'm taking away meat, I'm suddenly taking away all my options. But what actually happens is, you're going into the shop and you take away that chicken sandwich option. What happened is that suddenly your whole vision opens up and you can see all the options that weren't there before. You can see that. Whereas before, you're so focused on the chicken that you can't see anything else. So reframing how you're looking at it and saying that I'm actually not depriving myself of anything, I'm giving myself that health, I'm giving myself that vitality, that energy. And when you change that, that is when it becomes easy. So it's not a temptation like I was out last night with my family and they still eat fish, they still eat meat, or they still eat chocolate, whatever. It's not a temptation because it's just not in my conscious awareness. It's just like when you were kids, perhaps there was some sort of, I don't know, sweets, Starburst, whatever, that in the sweet shop that you really loved as a kid. Sherbets or something like that, I'm not sure. But now you walk into a sweet shop, I bet you don't even notice that they're there. Because it's not a case of willpower or discipline, because willpower and discipline don't last. It's been proven that they wane throughout the day, they wane depending on your stress levels, on your feeding levels, on how hungry you are. And if you use willpower to go all day resisting something or trying something, by the time you get to the evening, you're going to go back to whatever is going to be comforting. So the point is that it's all about mindset, which is why I kind of wrote the book and why I wanted to share it, because it's what people need to address first. And I see this all the time, people joining the gym, starting a new diet, trying to become vegan, vegetarian, healthy, or whatever it might be. if the mindset doesn't change, then the behavior ultimately won't change afterwards. So there's more about that in the book. I'm not going to cover any of that really today, but if you're interested, then come see me at the end. I already said what I noticed and why I continued to do it was because I was looking at what I was gaining, not what I was losing when I started transitioning. So like I said, that was, I needed less sleep. I had more energy in my life. I had better endurance, which is something I'll cover in a second. I had less recovery time, so I was able to kind of get back out there and do things. I like eating, so I could eat more of what I enjoyed and not feel so stuffed. You know, I would make, you know, a massive curry, and if it was a chicken curry before, I'd be stuffed for like hours, whereas if it was a vegetable curry, I was good to go again after half an hour. It was brilliant. So I could keep on eating. And the other thing is I didn't get ill very often, in fact, hardly at all. And it's not, and I'll stress this, it's not necessarily just a vegan diet, and I'm going to tell you more about that later. But what I noticed when I made these changes is that from going from having 4 or 5 colds a year, or even more, to having maybe 1 in the last 5 years. And if I get something, it usually comes off like a quarter of the time it does for most other people. So I made all these changes, I felt amazing, and I continue to do active things. People think that when you are, you know, not getting your meat through protein, whatever it might be, that you don't have the energy or you can't have the endurance. And back in 2010, I started doing these cycle trips with some friends. And we started doing London to Paris. And in fact, they weren't friends at the time. I didn't even know them. It was just like a friends of a friends thing. And over the period of years, they've seen my diet change steadily from like not eating, from eating and drinking everything to like not eating meat one year to then the following year not eating fish, the following year not eating bread. And now it becomes an interesting challenge, I'll say, when I'm out doing 4 days of cycling. We cycle 4 days from one city in Europe to another, doing anywhere between 70 to 120 miles a day. So we're doing a fair amount of cycling, we're burning a fair amount of calories. And I'm there each year getting progressively more weird. The last couple of years I've been literally taking my own blender with me, like a NutriBullet that I can pack, and I'm going around picking up all this kind of plant-based food, shoving it in the blender and not going down for breakfast, pizza, and they're just gone by the end of it. And so it's been quite a revelation because I've been able to have that level of endurance without making, I think, any sacrifices because I've shifted my mindset. I've been able to recover quicker. So how many people out there who are in the audience now, are you kind of quite new to this way of thinking or eating, or are you all kind of veterans? I don't know, yeah? So there's a few people who are kind of new. So you might have had some challenges yourselves, which I'd like to hear about maybe in the Q&A, because there might be something that I've gone through that I can help you with. But what I like about this cycle trip is that it's kind of demystifying to a lot of the other guys, and they're mostly guys, there's a few girls, but mostly like they're guys, they're drinking guys, whatever. And it's showing them that, you know, as we're getting older, we don't need to get worse, we can get better, in fact. So you guys probably already know this, but some of the big questions you always get asked: where do you get your protein? So maybe let me find out. Where do you guys get your protein from if you're vegan? Anyone?
From plants.
You get it from plants, yeah?
And also obviously pulses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it really.
Exactly, yeah. It's not that hard. In fact, if you're eating enough calories a day, you're going to have enough protein. It's basically impossible. You could eat potato all day and you'd still get enough protein because of the levels that you need. You don't need a huge amount of protein. Most people overemphasize the idea of protein, and the fact is you need protein. It's essential to repair the body, but if you're not doing damage in the first place as much, you don't need as much as well. Yes?
Is this talk about the heart disease?
No.
Oh.
This is talk about going from carnivore to plant-based. So you might be next door. But this will still cover heart disease, because we all know that having a vegan diet has been shown to reverse heart disease. Another paradigm shift that I encountered 5 years ago. I thought that was something that was permanent. But it's not, in fact. You can reverse heart disease just like you can type 2 diabetes. And maybe if you watch Simply Raw, they also reverse type 1 diabetes in that. But anyway, I digress. So, protein, it's essential, absolutely. but you get it from plants. I don't actually even eat that many pulses and lentils and things, but I do eat copious amounts of food, and I still exercise up to 2 hours a day. You know, I'm doing that, and I'll show you what I do that on in a moment. The other thing that people say, strength, that you're not going to be as strong. This guy, Patrick Baboumian, I don't know how you say it, he's world record holder for certain lifts, like one of the world's strongest men. You know? So if he can be one of the world's strongest men living on a vegan diet, you know, what's anyone else's excuse? So the idea that you're not going to be strong, the idea you're not going to get enough protein, and all the other ideas are generally not true. There are a couple of things that are worth pointing out, and I will do later. Okay, this probably means nothing to you. It's just a reminder, because I like the word dogma, and I hate the word dogma as well. Dogma because for me, it basically represents the things that are not necessarily good about an idea or an ideology. And one of the things that I've come to realize a little bit in the last few years is not to be too dogmatic about, well, your approach maybe to eating. We might have come to being vegans and found amazing health benefits and want to preach it to the rest of the world. They don't want to hear it, okay? And it's very, I think, in my experience at least anyway, can be a bit challenging to the identity if you're too dogmatic about something. If you say, this is the way and this is the only way. I never say that to any of my students when I train them in corporates or otherwise. I don't say that my way is the only way on anything I teach. It's a way, and it's working for me right now. I don't know what I'm going to be like in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. I don't know my life circumstances or anything else. But what I do know is that what's working for me is also working for other people, but everyone is slightly different. So it's worth kind of, I guess, holding that in mind if you're talking about the benefits of what you're experiencing as new vegans, vegetarians, whatever, because a lot of your family and friends don't really want to hear it. They don't want to be preached to. It's something I'm still learning, to be fair. I'm not that great at it, but I'm still learning it. So, and like I say, I don't want to be so dogmatic about how we eat, because I think we're all slightly different. And truth be told, veganism is a little bit of an experiment. There aren't generations and generations of vegans out there. In fact, if you look at the longest living population studies across the globe, they are largely vegan, but they have between 1 and 10% animal protein in their diet. Now, it's an occasional thing. It's going to be not full of antibiotics and all that other crap that comes with the stuff here. But it's worth just being open to that idea and understanding that this is a way of thinking about things. It's working for me, it's working for you maybe, but it might not be the way for everyone. So don't be too dogmatic about it. And my approach to food and nutrition, and again, a lot of vegans miss the mark with this because they think they're vegan and they're going out, they're eating all the junk food still. That's not healthy, okay? Don't kid yourself that just because it says vegan or gluten-free or whatever on the label, the fact is if it comes in a box, a packet, has a marketing campaign, an advertising campaign, or a celebrity endorsing it of any kind, it's probably not that great for you, okay? It might be slightly better than the meat version, I don't know, but just think about that. So my philosophy is PANLO 80-20, and I'll explain what those are right now. So we've got P, A, N, L and O, and they all stand for really what I identify as being the 5 areas I think about when I'm thinking about food, and they might help you. So if you want, you can make a note of this, or take a photo, whatever you want. But P, my first question, is this food plant-based that I'm having? So that's usually my first thing, naturally, because I'm not into eating animal products, so I'm going to ask for plant-based. Again, it doesn't have to be plant-only, maybe, in this model, but I would suggest that a plant-based diet is definitely the way to go. Is the food alkaline? So very, very quickly, for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with this idea of acid alkaline in terms of the diet, our bodies have got natural pH levels. Different organs have got different levels of pH. But our blood, which is our river of life, it's really an indication of how healthy we are, is very, very slightly alkaline. So very acid is like down the bottom of the scale, like 1, and very alkaline is at the top of the scale at like 14. 7 is neutral, which is hopefully usually water, but not always. And blood is just 7.365, so it's very slightly alkaline. And the blood will always maintain that alkalinity. However, what it does to get there puts a load on the system. So if you eat a lot of acidic forming products, such as meat, dairy, sodas, processed foods, lots of grains, all of these things create an acid load on your system, which in order to be neutralized, the body pulls nutrients from liver, kidneys, skin, bones. You know, you drink a lot of milk thinking you're getting calcium inside of you. It's actually leaching calcium from your bones, because in order to neutralize that, it's taking phosphorus and calcium from your bones. So the idea is it alkaline? And generally speaking, vegetables are alkaline. Most fruit isn't. So I tend to veer mostly my diet from a fruit and veg point of view. I call it veg and fruit, and it would be like 10 portions of veg to 1 portion of fruit, that kind of stuff. And I would eat the fruit rather than drink the fruit. N stands for natural state. So is it something that you recognize in nature? Does it look natural? If I'm making like a curry and it's got broccoli pieces in there, I can tell that that's a broccoli piece, right? Whereas if it's something in the packet, even though it might be plant-based, it might be made out of, I don't know, some kind of vegetable, it's probably not in its natural state. I wouldn't recognize it. So is it natural state? Next one, is it live or lightly cooked? So is it like a salad? Is it raw? Is it steamed or stir-fried? Something like that. That would be a focus for me, so that you don't destroy too many of the enzymes in there, and it's easier to digest. You have more life force energy from that food. And lastly, is it organic? I know there's some debate about this, but frankly, if something is being sprayed with things designed to kill things on it, think about whether you want that in your system as well. So is it organic? And like I say, it's about 80-20 this. It's if you can do this 80% of the time, so 4 meals out of 5, if you can do this 3/4 of your plate, that to me is a good thing. And if you can hit maybe all of them, great. But I say, if you can hit 3 or more of those Panlo ideas and have 3/4 of your plate look like that, it allows room for everything else. I mean, I still eat fried chips now and then, I still eat whatever it is, but I look to have that basis to be that kind of Panlo idea. Does that make sense to people? Again, you don't have to take this is just an idea, and you can choose to do what you will with it. Okay, next up, this, believe it or not, is what keeps me going on the cycle trips and day to day. This is a smoothie that I would make every day, except for this morning because I was staying at my sister's and they don't have a big enough Vitamix. They've got a NutriBullet and 3 kids running around this morning, under 3, so it was just crazy. But I will literally have, the greens, I'll have the chia, the goji berries, I will have the avocado, including the pip, cinnamon, turmeric, tahini, nuts and seeds. About 12 portions of veg go split between my juice and my smoothie. So around 6 in the smoothie, around 6 in the juice. Water, ice cubes. Maybe sometimes a little bit of coconut water for a bit of sweetener, and a couple of berries. Berries are literally, other than goji berries, I guess, the only fruit that goes in there. Unless you count avocado, I guess, as a fruit. But generally, it's a vegetable-based smoothie. And again, I didn't start that way. I started transitioning from like the sweeter kinds, because the problem is right now, everyone's about the NutriBullet, everyone's about the smoothies, and I go out there and most of it is going to be based in fruit. And fruit is not great to drink, yeah.
Sorry, did you say you eat the pip?
I do. I've only started doing that in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, I'll take half the pip, so I put half an avocado and the pip. And I would only recommend doing this in something like a Vitamix. I don't know how it will come out in a NutriBullet, but in the Vitamix, I mean, it makes everything smooth. So,
How do you cut the pip in half and put it in the...
with a knife. They're actually not that tough.
Is there what made you do that? Was there a benefit to that?
Yeah, well, 70% of the nutrients of the avocado come in the pip. Yeah, and it's something I didn't really recognise until literally a few weeks ago. I read an article and I thought, makes total sense. I mean, that's the thing that's going to create the life after it, And I just thought, isn't it too hard? And I was saying, actually, no, sometimes when I cut into it, I can cut into the pip quite easily. And if you've got a sharp enough knife, you can cut straight into it. And I was putting it into quarters, but actually, just shove it in half. The Vitamix blends it up, 60 seconds, and you've got the smoothest thing. You just don't know that all of that stuff are literally 30 different ingredients going into my smoothie. And I will make quite a lot. Like this is the before. kind of this is after, in fact it might even be up to 2 litres sometimes, and I will have around half a litre of juice, which is all vegetables, no fruit, and 2 litres, up to 2 litres of smoothie, and that will keep me going. Depends on what I'm doing, but at least till midday. But sometimes, I think more recently now, I've started happily, if not later, on just that. Like I say, I do a different version when I do my cycling with a Ninja or a NutriBullet, and it's slightly less stuff you can put in there. But as long as there's a fair bit of fat in there, because I think a lot of people are scared of fat, some vegans as well are scared of fat. You want the good fats, the avocado, the coconut fat, the nuts and seeds. That is what's going to keep you full. That's what, like, I'm a fat burner, not a carb burner when I'm doing my exercise, and it keeps you going at a nice steady pace. So I have quite a lot of fat. I'm still yet to measure, but I mean, I think my entire week's worth of fat, protein, everything's in there. I'll be hard pressed to find anyone that has more. So that's what I would normally have. But I think it's worth, because I'm looking at the time here, conscious of it, talking about supplements, because I do take some supplements, and I thought it'd be useful to share as to why I do. B12, which I think as vegans we know that we need to get that. I know that we can get that sometimes through things like maybe spirulina, other algae. I think the debate is still whether that's bioabsorbable enough, whether you really take that in. I didn't think about B12 for about 2 or 3 years after adopting this kind of diet, and I've only recently in the last, say, year or two thought about it. So I definitely have that once a week, maybe twice a week. I just take a tablet under the tongue, let it dissolve, and you have your kind of B12 for the week. So that's something I do supplement with. I do recommend anyone in a vegan diet supplement with B12, even if you're having fortified stuff, even if you're taking the spirulina stuff. I think it's cheap, it's an insurance policy, it's worth doing. If you don't have B12, you're going to have so many problems in the future. The next thing I take is an omega oil, omega-3. I know we get a lot of omega-3s in things like flax seeds and other nuts and seeds. However, that is the alpha-linoic kind of acid, ALA, which does convert to the more useful forms, EPA and DHA, which is what our body really needs potentially to thrive, especially the brain. And it's sometimes hard to make that conversion. Therefore, I take this plant-based vitamin, which is an EPA DHA vitamin. So it's an omega-3, but omega-3 has different kind of subsets, if you like. And the body creates some of those subsets through nuts and through other flax seeds, things like that, but not at a great enough conversion. So as an insurance policy, I believe it's a good thing to do. This one also comes with vitamin D3, which we need. Again, it's all plant-based, but vitamin D3, essential for calcium absorption into the bones, essential for your mood. We get vitamin D, or converts from sunlight. We don't get enough of that here. Definitely worth everyone being on a vitamin D3 rather than D2, I think, supplement. And the last thing I take as well is a magnesium oil spray. So I spray this just before I go to bed, 2-3 sprays. It helps with muscle relaxants, it helps with stimulating sleep, and magnesium is responsible for over 300 biochemical reactions in your body, including activating ATP, which is kind of like the nutrient, if you like, to kind of power your cells. So you won't get that energy if you don't have magnesium. It's a cofactor in so many things. And most of the population, 90-95%, if not more, are deficient in magnesium. As vegetarians, vegans, you might get more in if you're having like pumpkin seeds and a few things like that. But taking it topically is a good idea. It doesn't have a taxing effect on some of the organs. So 2-3 sprays of that is what I do. Again, you don't have to do any of this. This is just what I do, just suggestions. Next thing I wanted to cover quickly is just some tips when you're out and about, some things I've learned that have made things a lot easier for me, might make it easier for you. When you're going out and you're going to restaurants, like I said, our culture is embedded in food. I've had to transition a lot of my friendships into something slightly different because they might want to go to a gaucho grill for like a birthday, and it's like, well, okay, I'm not going to do that. And I haven't done gaucho grill, but I would normally phone ahead. And if I'm doing a talk, like I sometimes do talks at Rotaries, and I know what they're going to have for food there. So I will not even bother the organizer of the Rotary. I'll find out where we're going to eat, and I'll go and phone that place up and say, hey, look, I'm a bit of a difficult eater. I'm a bit fussy. And just making it lighthearted, not say, oh, well, you know, I eat this way and that's the way it's going to be. Just say, oh, you know, I'm a tricky eater. I'm a fussy eater. I can't eat this, and the other. Do you want any suggestions, or have you got an idea? And a lot of the time, these chefs, they like being creative as well. They like doing something new rather than the same old, same old. So just doing that. Or if you go to a restaurant, maybe have a quick word with the chef and say, look, you know, I don't want to make a big fuss in front of my 12 friends where you go, oh, I can't eat this, can't eat that. Just have a word, maybe go up there and have a word. That's what I do sometimes. I'll just go up and speak to them. When I'm in Slovenia or all these other places I go to and we go out for food, sometimes I eat separately from the rest of the cyclists because it's just too challenging if they're going to a pizza place, whatever. But sometimes I'll eat there and I've literally gone in, I've not spoken any English, and I've just kind of pointed at various vegetables and tried to say, can you just steam that and bring me some potatoes as well? And like, more often than not, I get food, you know. I'm in these places and I'm doing this cycling and yet I'm still managing to find enough food. So speaking to them, be prepared a little bit, maybe take something that you can eat, you know, these little snack balls. I've gone to weddings before where I've had them stuffed in my pocket somewhere, you know, because you need a bit of a backup, because if I don't have a backup and this happens, that's when I'm going to go for the chips, or I'm going to go for something which is maybe slightly less healthy. So always be prepared, have a little plan. And lastly, I'd say don't preach about it, you know. Unfortunately, it comes up every conversation I have over dinner because they will see what you're eating and they will ask, okay, why this? And then you go into the whole thing. And unless someone's genuinely curious, I've got one person in my life who I won't mention now because someone in this room knows them, but they are constantly challenging, and they're challenging for the sake of just challenging. They're not really interested and they're not really looking to kind of learn or develop. So I'm not going to, you know, sometimes I'm weak and I rise to the challenge. But don't preach about your dietary things. If they're interested, maybe say, yeah, let's chat about it later. Or maybe you just say, well, I found that this is the best diet for me. Just those 2 extra words can stop an argument. If you say this is the best diet, automatically you're up for debate. Say, I found that this is the best diet for me. Fine. Can't argue with that, you know? Or I'm trying it right now. So that would just be what I would say. Lastly, I'm going to carry on a little bit longer, but food isn't the only thing that you need in order to feel super. I found that. I said it before. You need a variety of things in your life, and it's what I've come to discover and ultimately call, and I'm just going to touch upon it now in case anyone is interested to find out afterwards, the leadership beat model. And it's what I teach in corporations. It's this idea that we all need to be leaders in our own lives. We think we're not leaders necessarily because we've got this grandiose notion of CEOs and Premiership football players and military generals, but in fact we're all leaders. And in order to be the best leaders that we can, the best self-leaders, we need to have self-mastery. That self-mastery comes from being on point mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that comes around what I've found out, at least anyway, my experience has been what I describe as the beat model. So they each stand for a different quadrant that you need to focus on in your life in order to be successful, in my opinion. You can focus on just one and have success, but at some point in the future, things might start to fade. The first one we kind of covered, which is your mindset, your psychology, or for the sake of this mnemonic, brain. So understanding that all change starts with a change in mindset if it's going to be long-lasting and effective. And that by understanding that intricately, you can make changes elsewhere in your life. So everything starts with a thought, and that's why I say train the mind and the rest will follow. Next up, we have this section which I call elements, and that's because the 4 components of it, air, water, earth, and fire, which are the kind of old elements, are really what's essential in terms of having your energy, your vitality, your health at its peak. Air is a point of breathing, pranayama in yogic philosophy. So the importance of breath and how you breathe. Water, the quality of the water, the amount of water, all the intricacies of water, and there are many. Earth is around the food we've kind of been talking about, your relationship to the earth, how you eat. And fire is, we've kind of mentioned, sunlight, outdoors, how you expose yourself. So air, water, earth, and fire are the elements that are needed to nourish your body, in and on your body. Then we've got activity, which is all about the things that you do in a day, not just exercise. It's about physical movement. Because I say movement intentionally because people get caught up on this idea of exercise. And exercise is great, but it's not essential for health. Okay? And in fact, you can spend an hour sweating it out in the gym, and then you spend 6 hours, 8 hours at your desk, a few more hours of sleep, a few more hours commuting. You're doing 1 hour out of the 24 where you're actually doing some movement. That's not enough. You want to be moving every 25 minutes, moving, getting up, crouching, doing something. So there's movement, but there's also your relationships to other people, whether you've got passion and purpose in your life. Because you can do everything else right. can eat right, exercise, but if you're unfulfilled in your job or whatever it might be, you're going to be low in energy. You're going to start creating illness sometimes within you. Not always, but sometimes. So activity is about how do you keep your day going. And finally, we've got T, which is tranquility, which is about how you rest, renew, recover, rejuvenate your body. Yeah. From the idea of sleep, a lot of models focus on sleep, food and exercise, but it's much more in depth than that. So meditation, massage, digital detoxing, downtime, holidays, rest, anything like that that will keep your body young. So that's the BEAT model. That is effectively what I tend to teach corporates, what I tend to teach individuals, because like I said, a lot of people think, I'm a vegan, so therefore I'm healthy, I'm immune from disease, I'm immune from this. That's not the case, okay? In fact, you can do everything right and still get something, because there's always going to be an underlying reason for it. But what I found is that it's not just about food, it's not just about exercise, it's not just about sleeping, it's a whole plethora of things. And this helps me because I think to myself, if I'm feeling offbeat today, am I on or offbeat? If I'm offbeat, what am I missing from the B, E, A, and T? From a psychology point of view, how am I thinking? Where are my emotions? Where's my attention? Elements, have I eaten enough? Have I drunk enough? Have I done some deep breathing today? Activity, am I around people who zap my energy? Or with people, am I in alignment with my purpose? Have I moved? And tranquility, have I slept enough? Have I had a day off? Have I been on holiday? Have I got a massage recently? Whatever it might be, what do I need to focus on? It's a really easy model for me to approach, because then I know if I'm feeling offbeat, what do I need to adapt? Like I say, it wasn't the main purpose of this talk, but if you do want to know more, I do have an 8-week online course which you have lifetime access to, which goes through this BEAT model, and a second course as well, which is more specific around sleep, because I found a lot of people suffer with sleep. I used to take 45 minutes to an hour to get to sleep. Now it's about 2 minutes, and I sleep much better. And it's small changes. Nothing is too extreme, too costly, or anything like that. So that's kind of really me. I wanted to leave a few more minutes for questions. I'm hoping you've got some questions. Like I say, if you want, I'm going to be here. I've got some books, the courses. By all means, take one of these cards with you. They've got some questions on the back that you can ask yourself. You have it by your desk, and take one of my business cards. If you want a book, they're £10. But otherwise, I would really love if there was at least 1 or 2 questions. So please, who wants to be first? Okay.
I'm struggling with and worrying about is getting enough energy
Me too.
when I get back in the gym, because I do very high intensity training.
Yeah.
And my diet before was paleo, so it was high meat, lots of vegetables, nuts and seeds. So it was a good diet, and I was in amazing shape. But now that I've had this switch, it's kind of trying to figure out how to put that into my lifestyle, because everything I look at, it looks like I've got to eat a lot more. And I'm trying to figure out how I can do that in a day, because obviously with your lifestyle, with mine, I work a very long week, so I need to get that food in me.
Yeah.
But I can't be having 5 or 6 meals a day.
No. My suggestion on that, I've done, things like CrossFit, I've done all these things, I've done these things on juice fast as well, so I've literally done CrossFit sessions on no food, but it's how your body adapts. In terms of getting the food in, you do tend to need to get some more food in. I would suggest, and this is my personal suggestion, for me it works, is literally the smoothie, is for me, I think, the linchpin to everything, because there's so much fat, protein, nutrient-dense things in there, and I tend to have that after I've gone and done like an hour or 2 workout as well, and I might do an hour body pump now these days rather than CrossFit, and maybe an hour of yoga, and then I'll come back, and before that I'll have had probably my juice, which is light, and then maybe a small glass of the smoothie, but then I'll have like about 1.5 litres afterwards, and I find, I'm now as heavy as I was. My weight has fluctuated. When I was eating meat, I was like about 78 kilos. At my lightest, I went down to about 72. Now I'm back up to 78, actually. And I think having more fat in the diet, more protein in that smoothie. So if you can afford a Vitamix, I really recommend them. They're not cheap. They're £500. They took me about 2 years to build up the courage to buy one. But I'm so glad I did, because I don't think I could do as much as I do now without that kind of breakfast in me. And if you're short on time, you can prep things so you can have it in the container, have that in the fridge, then add the kind of like liquids and bits and blitz in the morning. With a smoothie, it kind of tends to keep a little bit longer than like a juice. Juice, even with the cold press machines, I find I still want to drink them straight away. I don't want to let them sit out, even if they've got no oxygen coming into them. But smoothies, I would try and do it the day before and have that smoothie post workout.
Key like vegetables or specific things that you find are like the base of your
The base is, from a vegetable point of view, is often things like celery, cucumber, courgette, lemon and ginger.
Okay.
Lemon as a base for my juices and my smoothies. More so in the juice it has to be, because you really taste it if it's not there. But I do things a little bit crazy. Like I said, I'll have like kale and spinach. I will have pretty much every single vegetable that's in my thing in there. Most other people won't. They'll have maybe 2 or 3. Find out what works for you. And the other thing is, from a mindset point of view, and people find this with cooking, is that they're afraid to get it wrong, or they're afraid that they can't then change if they... No, it's an ongoing thing. My smoothies have changed in the last 3 years from when I first started to now. So experiment, but I would say make sure you're getting some fats in there, some coconut, some avocado, some nuts and seeds, and stack it, and then you'll work it out. That would be my advice. Cool, thanks, great question. Anyone else have a question? Yeah?
You started to explain why you didn't want to put fruits in your smoothie.
Yeah, so... Okay, well, fruits generally, because they're quite acidic in nature, so in terms of the body's balance, it's going to have to work harder for it. So if you have an overly fruity smoothie, even though you are getting the fibre, which is better than in a juice, because in a juice it strips the fibre, right? If you have a fruit juice, it's like you're having a shot of sugar going straight into your bloodstream, okay? In the smoothie, you get that slow absorption because you contain the fibre, which is why I'd have some fruit in my smoothie, but only literally a few berries, which are kind of low or no fructose, but they've got something else in them, and they're good for many other reasons. But I wouldn't be like lacing up with bananas and apples and things like that, because there's still a lot of sugar in there, even though you're taking in the fibre. If you're starting out, I would say maybe you go 50-50. 50% fruit, 50% veg, and then over a slow period of time, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever, scale it back so it's 9-10, something like that. Your taste buds change every 10 days or so. They get used to different things. So don't come out of this and go and make a veg shake and smoothie, because you'll probably hate it and never go back to it. If you're used to sugar, you have to wean yourself off that. It's an addictive substance, even if it's natural sugar. So hopefully that answers it. Any other questions? Just 2 questions? There's a final question. There's no silly questions, so if you're thinking about asking a question and you're not quite sure, just ask it anyway.
You can't get the Vitamix. What's the next best?
There is something called an Omni blend, which looks suspiciously like a Vitamix. They literally... an Omni blend. Yeah, and I think they're about 250. And
for 250.
Yeah, and they are as powerful, and I think they are interchangeable with Vitamix. So if I broke my jar thing, I think I'd probably get an Omni blend thing, which would be cheaper. That is a good alternative. I've got to say, I bought my brother-in-law and my sister a NutriBullet, the old one, and I bought my other ones, the Pro. That does a pretty good job as well in terms of blending things up. You'll still feel the bits compared to a Vitamix, and you can't get as much in. So for me, it's not as useful, but they've got their kids on it. You know, they're 1 and 3. And the kids will have vegetable smoothies. They love green moustaches. They love it. And my niece, 3-year-old niece, got taken to like an ice cream shop, and my sister said, you can have any ice cream or any shake that you want. And she looked up and she's like, I want a green smoothie. It's like, which I didn't sell, obviously. And because she likes it. And if you get them involved in the process. But yeah, the answer to your question, Omni Blend, I think things like Blendtec and that are still the same sort of price. NutriBullet is a good halfway house as well. Go for what you can afford, really, rather than hold out. Yeah.
One of the best ones I found for value for money is called NutriPro.
NutriPro.
1000-watt motor.
Is that the one that they sell in Robert Dyer's?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, I saw that. I might actually get that as a travel thing.
I bought one for myself and I was so impressed. I got 2
2 more.
Yeah, they're like only 60 quid or something. 60 quid?
Yeah, I only paid £40.
£40. So that actually, I mean, again, it's a smaller container though.
Quite a big container.
Vitamix will have 2 litres in there. So for me, that's kind of what I need. But yeah, 1,000 watts, 40 quid, Robert Dyer's. Yeah. I mean, all of this will blend nuts. I'm pretty sure it might even blend the pip of the avocado. But again, you'll notice it's like you won't notice it as you're drinking it, but put that next to one blended in a Vitamix, and you'll be like, okay, I know the difference. Okay, cool. Any other questions? So it's yeah. Okay, quickly. Last couple of questions.
With your travelling throughout Europe and stuff,
Yeah.
have any cultures have been particularly challenging towards your diet?
No, I haven't actually. You know, I've done Portugal, I've done Spain. These are kind of meat places. Yeah.
I cycled Europe extensively beforehand, but I didn't do it on a vegan diet, so I
Yeah.
always wondered if I tried.
They think I'm a bit weird. They don't get it. You know, yeah. So, but that's fine. I can live with that. But yeah, you just do it with a smile, do it with a friendly face, and just say, I just want vegetables. And sometimes, like one time, they brought me some sort of, I think it was a gluten-free pasta that they did. And I said to them before, I want loads and loads and loads of vegetables. I want like 600 grams. I know I want like about 500 to 600 grams of veg in a portion. And they came and it was hardly anything. I just went, like, can you just put that back? And then they came back and they basically just put a whole salad on top of this pasta thing. And I said, okay, that will have to do. And it still wasn't enough, but it was, you know. So I kind of, if they know about grams, I'll specify. Because I know that roughly 500 grams of veg I can put in a stir fry and I can eat the lot quite easily. So, sorry, last question before we finish.
Have you stopped drinking alcohol?
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't gone teetotal. I find that I can't drink much alcohol. Things like sulfites in wine will affect me. So if I get a low or no sulfite wine, I might have a bit of that. You're not going to get up as early the next day. I'm not going to be as busy if I have the alcohol. Alcohol with me is a long story, but my body basically isn't good for it. And it took me a long time to work that out. But, so yeah, beer's got yeast in it and all that, so I don't do any of alcohol really. But I'll have champagne now and then. I might have a vodka and soda now and then, but I don't do fizzy drinks. So I'm not teetotal, and that's another thing from the mindset point of view, is never say never, because as soon as you resist something, it persists. If I say, I can never have meat ever again, I can never have this ever again. No, just today I'm not having it. Yesterday I didn't have it. The day before I didn't have it. Tomorrow's another day, I don't know. So whether that's alcohol, whether that's meat, whether that's chips, whatever. I'm not saying no to anything, but it just so happens that it hasn't entered my life that much. Okay, you can connect with me. I am called The Thought Gym on all the various social media platforms. If you want any information of sorts, drop your email down here. I'll let you know when I'm doing talks or any other useful thing that's not like a regular mail shot that goes out. Do take a card. If you're interested in a book or one of the courses, come see me. We have only about a couple of minutes, but I can always spend a bit of time outside with you if you want. Other than that, thank you for coming and listening.